children. I hope today we all are ready for the class. Yes. As I promised, I will just give you a quick recap of the chapter Development Economics lesson number 1 so as to ensure whether you really understood all the important concepts which are a must to make the chapter easy for you. Hope the notes provided to you is making matters easier, your understanding better. Still, just find yourself in a position to answer these basic questions out of that chapter. Okay, are we clear with the concept of development? Do we know what is economic development and social development? Then, when economic development concentrates on the rise of the income of the people, we have learned that social development includes education, health, and public services as well. Then, this is just a bird's eye view of the chapter so as to make the matters easy for you. Features of development. We studied that different people have different developmental goals, and what is development for one may not be the same for the other. The concept of development may differ from person to person, and at times it may go contradictory to one another, even if the two people we are talking about evaluating belong to the same family, same age group, or even if they belonged to different age group and different social economic status. They may match with one another, but there is no compulsion for that. Then we studied that the most important criteria to understand development when on a global basis, the World Bank states that income happens to be the most important criteria to measure the developmental status of a country. There are other important aspects also that we need to keep in mind. As then per capita income, the developmental goals concentrate upon the good standard of living, the satisfaction, the equal treatment that people receive in their workplace and at home, the freedom with which we do our work, the security that we receive, and the ample amount of opportunities that we get, and the respect and acceptance that we receive from our fellow mates. Now, the average income, how is it calculated? It is calculated by dividing the total income of a country by its population. How Mr. A, B, C, D, how much Mr. A, B, C, D, the citizens of a nation, how much do they earn? That is summed up and divided by the number of people inhabiting in that country. Okay, that gives us an idea regarding a measure of the per capita income or the national income. When I explained you this point, I made it clear that even though the income happens to be the most important criteria to understand the developmental status of a country, we need to remember that this is not the only thing that really covers up the entire developmental scenario or explains every aspect of development. It only categorizes country into the three main types. So, in short, we can say that the World Bank concentrates on the economic growth, monetary growth of a nation, and it ranks the countries of the world as rich countries, poor countries, and middle income group countries. Right? Then, classifying countries on the basis of per capita income, which I just briefed you up, was done, and the data regarding how much a country needs to have, how much monetary returns a country needs to have to label it as a rich country. I gave you a data that this was the latest data which I gave you as per the from the I served it for your sake. And it stated that a country which happens to have 12,376 US dollars or more is stated to be a country which is rich, while the low income countries fall into the category of, means their income is, per individual income is, on an average is 1035 US dollars or less than that. The low middle income countries fall into the bracket of 1026 US dollars to 3995 US dollars. Our country India falls into this category of gross national income per capita of around $2,000. Now, on the second day of understanding the chapter, we concentrated upon income or the other indicators, other criteria that helps a country to identify it as a developed or a less developed or a developing nation, right? And these indexes fall under the human development indexes. So, this gives you a brief idea that when, on one hand, the World Bank concentrates upon the income of a nation to categorize it as rich, poor, or middle income group, the Human Development Index concentrates on the other aspects that really influence the developmental status of a nation. And the parameters given by them are literacy rate. How many people in the country are literate? What is the infant mortality rate? How many kids survive? How many infants can afford to survive after the age of 1? Then, do we have an access to the clean drinking water? That also matters. Then, the standard of living of the people. Then we touched a very important aspect, the body mass index, which helps us understand the nutritional status of a person. Because as I briefed you yesterday, if in a healthy mind stays, in a healthy body stays a healthy mind. So how do we calculate the body mass index of a person? What do? Is we calculate the weight of a person and then we divide it by the square of the height. Then the other important parameter which helps us to understand the human development index is the life expectancy at birth. That means the average expected length of life of a person at the time of birth. Then the health facilities. This concentrates on the medical facilities that the people living in a nation avail so as to sustain their life, so as to continue living in a healthy manner. It clearly gives us a picture. The better the medical conditions or medical upliftment, technological development of a country, the better will be the condition of the people to continue surviving, fighting against all the negatives. Then, towards the end of the chapter, we concentrated on sustainability of development. I explained you what we meant by sustainable development. Let us just quickly review that part. Let us understand the concept of sustainability. The word sustainability comes from the word to sustain, to continue with, to persist for long. So, when development continues to be constant, continue, then that aspect is what we mean by sustainability of development. Now, how can we afford to make the development remain constant, or persist, continue when we all understand our responsibilities to make use of the available resources in a profitable manner, in an economical manner, understanding the requirement of the upcoming generations as well, and utilize it only as per requirement without wasting the available resources, keeping it stored for the upcoming generations as well while fulfilling our day to day demands at the present time. So, these were all the aspects or the important points that covered the chapter. At the end of the chapter, yesterday I gave you a series of questions, assignments. Some of these questions were from the NCERT book itself. I want you to all these write down, jot down all these answers in your fair notes copy, along with some specific questions which I framed from as per the understanding, which is basically required as per the present CBSE standards. I wish you understood the chapter well. Read the chapter thoroughly, concentrate on the points which were as well. And before you forget the highlights, you please prepare your fair. There will be one common register meant for history, political science, and economics. The same teacher is teaching you, so you will be keeping one register. You just column it term wise. That's all. Term 1, chapter history, pol science, economics. Again, continue. That way, no bifurcations are required at this point. I hope I could make the matter clear to you. Now, let us start with yet another chapter, political science. Okay, chapter 1 from political science. I request you all to keep ready your political science book you are familiar with, of course, right? So, at page at page number 1, an overview. An overview only gives you a gist of what we understand in this book. What is the basic objective of this book? In this book, we shall study about power and politics. Now, to understand it, see how nicely, how smartly CBSE has framed up the chapters also and arranged them in order. Power sharing, the first chapter of political science. What are we going to study in that chapter? What is power sharing? Now, as a student of political science, you must be knowing that what is politics? Politics is all about power play. So, in this chapter, we shall study how power is rolled down, how power is distributed amidst the people, the different social groups, the different organs of the government, the different levels of the government, in between the different political parties. But before we go in detail with the chapter, let us understand it in a very systematic, easy manner. I hope while I was giving you this introduction, all of you are ready with your political science book. Please open up your political science book at page number 2. You will see that there are examples. With the help of examples, the concept of power sharing is made clear to each one of you. Now, what is power sharing? Power sharing is all about sharing of responsibilities and powers by the organs of the government in between the different levels of the government, in between the different social groups and political parties. Now, why is it necessary to share power? To understand this basic question, we can concentrate on our own nation. What comprises our nation? India is a home to so many people belonging to different culture, caste, creed, place, right? So if each one of us are made to feel worthy of our existence by giving a promising a standard, you also have a say in your nation structure or formation, then we feel worthy of our existence. Now, of a democratic country like India, which is inhabited by people belonging to varied culture and power sharing, when we distribute power, when we share power, it helps to reduce the possibility of conflict between the different social groups. Where in India, pertaining to our own nation, we may say, where India, the citizens of our nation, we also enjoy a right to know who's governing us and how are we being governed. What status do we hold in our country? Now, to understand the concept of power sharing, we shall again refer to the book wherein you are seeing that at page number 2, there is the topic says Belgium and Sri Lanka. So, these are the examples with the help of how power is shared in Belgium, one nation, and the other nation, Sri Lanka, power is rolled on and what effect does it show in the smooth running of the nation. Now, let us be very systematic in our approach. Let us concentrate on Belgium. Now, about Belgium, it's a small country in Europe which shares its borders with France, Netherlands, Germany, and Luxembourg. It's a small country with a little over 1 crore of the population. And the ethnic composition of the country's total population, the country's total population, 59% of the people live in the Flemish region, the northern part of the country, and they speak Dutch. While another 40%, I just will brief you, I will show you the picture of or the map of Belgium is given at page number 2. If you refer to the book, you will get an idea of it. Just have a look. You all have the book. Right? So, this is the Flemish region. This is the Flemish region and the Wallonia region. Now concentrate on the lecture that I am giving you. Okay, the ethnic distribution of Belgium. Right. So this green part or the light part is the Flemish region, and there 59% of the people inhabiting in this Flemish region they speak French. Just in contrast to the 59, the Flemish region, the Wallonia region, that is the southern part of Belgium, 40% of the people living there, they speak French. Concentrate, children. This will help you understand. Remaining 1%, they speak German. Just in contrast to this overall structure of population distribution in Belgium, the small red colored dot, you may say, in the northern part of the country, this small part is the country's capital, Brussels. In Brussels, the country's and only 20% speak Dutch. Could you understand the contrast in between the national population and the population of the 9% speak Dutch and 40% speak French, while in the capital Brussels, 80% speak French and only 20% speak Dutch. Now, under this ethnic distribution or the distribution of population and the remaining 1% they are the German speaking people living there, inhabiting Belgium. Now, under these circumstances, the minority French speaking community in Belgium was relatively rich and could avail the education facility and economic development much earlier than the Dutch speaking majority in the country. Remember, country wise, 59% Dutch speaking and only 40% French speaking on the country wise. Now, this 40% French people were rich facility as well as their development, economic development was much earlier received by them than in contrast to the majority of the people speaking French. 40 in this facility much earlier than the Dutch speaking people. As a result, there was a conflict. There was a situation of dissatisfaction. Now, this caused tension in between the two communities during the year 1950s and 1960s. In Brussels, that small colored dot part which is lying in the Flemish region, Brussels, the country's capital, the Dutch speaking comprise the majority, while the minority in the country, right? So, this was the scenario. Why? The conflict was because in the country wise we are major, in the capital wise we are minor, and vice versa. This caused a disbalance, and that's why they cropped up a feeling of inequality in between these two ethnic groups. Now, as we go in detail with the chapter, we shall try to understand how the Belgian government tried to find a solution to this problem. Because wherever there is a problem, there is also a solution. So, how the government in Belgium tried to find out a solution to this scenario? I hope you understood it. To contrast picture country wise and capital wise. This cropped up a situation of conflict, dissatisfaction, misunderstanding, but the Belgian government was smart enough to understand the situation and bring up an equilibrium in the situation. Now, let us move to yet another country, an island nation close to India, the southern border of our country. Country 2, Sri Lanka. You are seeing in the example also, the section 1 starts with Belgium and Sri Lanka. We understood what was the scenario in Belgium. Now let us try to understand what is the scenario in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka, something about it. An island nation near the southern coast of Tamil Nadu. Population 2 crores, equivalent to our Haryana, and inhabited by a bit more number of social groups. 75 4% of the people in Sri Lanka, they are the Sinhala speakers, and they believe in the Buddhist religion, while 18% of the people living in Sri Lanka, they are the Tamil speakers, both falling into the Hindu as well as the Muslim speakers. They are. Out of this 18% Tamil speakers, 13% of the Tamilians in Sri Lanka are the Sri Lankan Tamils, those who had already inhabited there right from the British period. And 5% of the people are the Indian Tamils, those who moved to Sri Lanka. The yet another majority or the ethnic group is 7% Christian. Both the Tamils and the Sinhala speakers. The Christians are a mixture of Tamil speakers and the Sinhala speakers.